Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Wednesday, April 30th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 534 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of those tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms. And today we've got some New York Jets breaking news to discuss, as Jordan Travis, quarterback, is unfortunately retiring from the NFL. We'll break that down to open today's show, and we'll also get into the New York Jets officially picking up the fifth-year options on that loaded 2022 draft class of Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, and Jermaine Johnson. As always, though, before we begin, we got to tell you about our podcast partners, starting with our friends over at BetUS, America's favorite online sportsbook. If you want to get in on any of the sports betting action, check out BetUS and use my link in the description of this video to get a 125% sign-up bonus on your first three deposits up to $2,000. Also, our friends over at SeatGeek. If you want the hottest ticket in sports or entertainment, check out SeatGeek and use code BUBSONSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase and get yourself out to some awesome events. And of course, our friends over at Huga House. If you want any of their awesome selection of hats or sweatshirts, check them out and use code BUBS for 15% off any purchase and get yourself out to, some awesome Huga House apparel. So here we go, episode 534. Thank you as always for joining me. Thank you as always for tuning in, whether on YouTube or, of course, all the different audio podcast platforms. Appreciate each and every one of you. So earlier today, we got some very unfortunate breaking news out of Jetland, as quarterback Jordan Travis, former fifth-round pick, has announced that he is retiring. Here was a part of a statement that Travis released earlier today. He said, quote, "On November 18th, 2023, my life took an unexpected turn. I gave everything I had to the rehab process, but despite all my efforts, my leg never responded the way we hoped. After much prayer and consultation with the doctors, medical experts, and my agent, I've been medically advised to retire from the game I love so much." This was also Darren Muji on Jordan Travis and that decision. He said, quote, "Jordan has informed us of his intent to retire due to the injury he sustained while at Florida State. It is unfortunate that he was unable to get back on the field after working so hard. We support his decision and wish him only the best." This is awful. Really no other way to put it, right? Jordan Travis, to kind of give you the timeline here, this was a guy in 2023 leading Florida State to an undefeated record, would have probably led them, to an undefeated season and to a college football playoff berth, and had an opportunity to compete for a national championship. He goes down late in that season in November with a gruesome broken leg injury, and draft stock went from a day 2 pick, potentially high first or high second round pick, to a day 3 pick with some questions around the injury and his recovery and his future. And this was also a guy who during that season at Florida State was in the Heisman consideration. And if he would have finished out that season, there was a chance he could have walked away with the Heisman Trophy. So all of that happens. He ends up getting taken, of course, fifth round pick by the Jets, 171st overall. And you felt like going into training camp last year, he would be good to go, right? You heard from his agent during the draft process last year that he'll be ready for training camp. He'll be good to go. He wasn't. And then you heard throughout last season, late last season, that he didn't suffer just one setback, but he suffered multiple setbacks, would then kind of put you into question what his future would be like this year. How bad were those setbacks? How much time did he need to get back to where he was pre-setback? Just very unfortunate. You know, this is a guy here that was a very intriguing prospect, having a great year at Florida State, putting together a great season, gets hurt, gets to the NFL, and before he can even complete, forget about a game, forget about a preseason game, forget about a pass, he couldn't even, unfortunately, complete a practice, and his career is almost over, or his career is already over. And just from the human element there, it's awful. You know, for a guy that young to just be entering his second season where his first year he was completely shut down, to have this happen is awful. So you can only wish Jordan Travis nothing but the best. The human element obviously is always so much bigger than football, the game itself. But the setbacks and the injury itself, medically, as he mentioned that statement, just felt like it was too much to overcome and ultimately get back out onto the field. And it was always, just from the Jets' perspective, as you kind of shift into that, right? You know, it was always kind of interesting what Travis's future would be like here, because the Jets this entire offseason have been very kind of like mum when it comes to the Travis and his, you know, his future and his injury. Anytime they were asked about it, Glenn and Muji, they always kind of dodged it, walked around the question, didn't really answer it. And part of that could have been they knew that maybe the setbacks and everything that was going on. Part of it, as a fan, you kind of thought, okay, maybe, you know, he'll be ready to roll, and they're just not saying anything. But just the way that they have approached this, and anytime Glenn and Muji were asked about this, looking back on it, it feels like this may have been something that has been in the works for a little bit, the consideration of retirement and not being able to make a full recovery and come back. And, you know, Jets elected not to draft a quarterback in this class, you know, a day 3 pick, whether that was a McCord, you know, a Will Howard, somebody like that. And they instead elected to just sign Brady Cook as a UDFA. So from the Jets' perspective now, you now look at this and say, okay, your third quarterback is probably a competition between Brady Cook and Adrian Martinez. You know, we talked about Brady Cook a little bit the other day as a UDFA. I don't think either of those guys will turn into anything big time. I mean, again, we are talking about the third quarterback spot here, right? We're not talking about a starter or a backup going down, where you now have to talk about bringing another veteran. Maybe the Jets bring in another camp arm, bring in another UDFA. But I think you're looking at, right, your QB room is pretty set from the 1-2 spot, and that's Fields and Tyrod Taylor. 3 is now a battle between Cook and probably Adrian Martinez as your, one of them will just be a camp arm. The other one will actually make this team as a third quarterback, you know, your emergency and active on game day, or active but emergency quarterback on game day, essentially as your third QB. So that's kind of the approach you look at it now from a Jets perspective. And it's just unfortunate, just from the player's perspective. It's very, very unfortunate, because anytime a player that young, anytime a player that potential, especially at that position, right? Playing quarterback in the NFL, it's a big deal. And to not be able to even get into a game, get into a practice is just awful. So you can only wish, like I said, Jordan Travis nothing but the best moving forward, as unfortunately his career comes to an end way too soon. So that's the Travis stuff. Now, I want to move on now to some not really breaking news, but official news that we got earlier today from the Jets, and that was the 5th-year options. Now, Muji talked about this in his pre-draft press conference. They asked him if he will pick up the 5th-year options of that 2022 draft class, Sauce Garrett and Jermaine Johnson, and he said, yeah, you know, but they still had time to decide. So pretty much made it official there, but now it's officially official. Jets pick up Sauce Garrett and Jermaine's 5th-year options. I don't think this should come as any of a surprise. We all knew that all 3 of them would get picked up. We knew that after Muji said it. We knew it before Muji said it. And now it's just official, the next big thing that I'll continue to say here is the extensions for Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson. That's the next big question. And I think they will happen, and they should happen, right? That's clear. I think most Jet fans agree. It's just a matter of when, not if. I've said it many times. I'm kind of targeting that period between that 40-day period between minicamp, OTAs, all that stuff. Once mandatory minicamp wraps up like June 10th through the 12th or whenever it is, like in mid-June, and you have that 40-day period until late July when training camp begins, I think something will happen then. I think that's your best time. Get something done once the offseason program's done and you have that 40-day period. Get it done there. That's the time I would expect it to happen. Get it done. Get them into camp. Don't have it over your head during camp or right before the season. Get it done. Get it out of the way. Extend 2 blue chip pieces on both sides of the football and make both guys Jet for life. Jermaine, on the other hand, you probably wait a year. And you probably would have anyway, but now the injury as well especially puts that into consideration because you want to see him come back strong from the torn Achilles, which I believe he will. There's so much to like about Jermaine Johnson. Just the way he carries himself, the way he loves playing for this team. There's so much to like. Obviously, his play on the field as well. I think he'll be here long term. I do. I think that's something, though, that you probably address next off season because you've got Sauce and Garrett to deal with this year, and you still want to see how Jermaine responds, and you buy yourself that extra year with the 5th-year option coming off the torn Achilles. So that's the 5th-year option stuff. Not anything surprising, but still makes it official. And next up, the real big news will be the Sauce and Garrett extensions, which will happen sooner rather than later. It's not if, it's more of a matter of when. It should be, I should say, a matter of when, with this regime locking up 2 blue chip pieces. Especially Glenn, a guy who you hope can continue to get more out of Sauce. So that's that. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. Your thoughts on the unfortunate retiring news of Jordan Travis. And, of course, your thoughts on the New York Jets picking up the 5th-year options. More so, though, extensions. Do you see it happening? When do you see it happening? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. As always, appreciate you all so much. Talk to you soon. Until next time, JETS. Jets, Jets, Jets.